He spent his nights unraveling the darkest secrets of the internet, a digital detective piecing together cold cases from the comfort of his home. His online friends knew him as a brilliant mind who could spot clues others missed. But one day, the trail of digital breadcrumbs led investigators not to a killer, but to him. He solved murders online, right up until they solved his. This story takes us to the quiet, unassuming town of Bartlesville, Oklahoma. It's the kind of place where serious crime is something you only see on TV. Living here was Jason Fox, a 38-year-old man who, by all accounts, was a bit of a recluse. He lived with his parents, worked odd jobs, and spent most of his time online. But in the virtual world, Jason wasn't just Jason Fox. He was a prominent member of a web sleuth community, a group of amateur detectives dedicated to solving real-life mysteries. Jason was particularly obsessed with the case of a missing woman. He'd spend hours, sometimes days, glued to his screen, poring over police reports, satellite images, and forum discussions. He built elaborate theories, connecting disparate pieces of information with a skill that impressed even seasoned investigators. His online persona was confident, sharp, and relentless. In his digital world, he was a hero. On October 6, 2015, Jason's two worlds collided in the most brutal way imaginable. His parents returned home to a scene of unimaginable horror. The house was in disarray, and a fire had been set in the living room. And there, amidst the smoke and chaos, they found their son. Jason had been horrifically murdered. He was bound with duct tape, and his life had been taken in a violent, personal manner. The digital detective who hunted monsters had become a victim himself. The Bartlesville Police Department was immediately faced with a baffling case. Who would want to kill a quiet homebody like Jason Fox? The crime scene was a mess. The fire had destroyed potential evidence, and the initial search yielded few clues. The motive seemed non-existent. There was no sign of forced entry, suggesting Jason might have known his killer. The local community was terrified. If a quiet man like Jason could be targeted so viciously, was anyone safe? Investigators started where they always do, with the victim's life. But Jason's life was largely lived through a screen. His social circle wasn't in Bartlesville, it was scattered across the globe, connected by fiber optic cables. So, the police had to enter Jason's world. They seized his computers, his hard drives, his digital everything. And as they delved into his online life, they discovered a universe they were completely unprepared for. Jason was part of a sprawling network of web sleuths. These weren't just casual true crime fans, they were dedicated, almost fanatical, in their efforts. They operated under pseudonyms, debated theories in encrypted chat rooms, and sometimes, they crossed lines. They would harass people they suspected and publish private information. The police had a daunting task: to vet hundreds of anonymous online personas. Could one of Jason's fellow sleuths be the killer? Or maybe someone he had accused online decided to exact revenge. One of the first major leads came from Jason's online activity in the days before his death. He had been in a heated, public argument with another user on a forum. The argument was about the very case Jason was obsessed with. This other user, known only by a cryptic username, had threatened Jason. "You better watch your back," one message read. "People like you who play detective get what's coming to them." The digital forensics team worked tirelessly to trace the IP address of this mysterious user. After bouncing through proxy servers, they finally got a hit. The IP address traced back to a small town in a neighboring state. The same state where the missing woman's case originated. This was a huge breakthrough, it seemed. Jason's online obsession had finally caught up with him. Detectives from Bartlesville traveled to the town, ready to confront the person behind the screen. But the man they found there was not a killer. He was just another amateur sleuth who admitted to making the threats but was horrified to learn what had happened. He had an airtight alibi. He was at work, with dozens of witnesses, at the time of Jason's murder. It was a dead end, a classic red herring that had cost the investigation precious time. The team was back to square one, but not entirely. While digging through the first suspect's online communications, they found something else. He had been talking to other members of the sleuth group about Jason, and one name kept coming up. A user who went by the name Captain. Captain was a respected figure in the community, but also a mysterious one. He ran some of the private chat groups and seemed to know everyone. When investigators started digging into Captain's digital footprint, they noticed something odd. His online activity, which was usually constant, went completely silent for a 48-hour period that perfectly coincided with the time of Jason's murder. This was more than a coincidence. The police focused all their resources on identifying Captain. This user was an expert at covering their tracks. But they made one tiny mistake. In an old forum post from years earlier, Captain had mentioned a specific, local event in a small town in Texas. Cross-referencing that with other tiny digital breadcrumbs, they finally got a name: Daniel Triplett. Daniel Triplett was a 66-year-old man who ran a septic tank installation business in Guthrie, Oklahoma, about 2 hours from Bartlesville. On the surface, he was a normal, hardworking grandfather. Nothing about him screamed killer, but as investigators dug deeper, a darker picture emerged. They discovered that Jason Fox had hired Daniel Triplett to do some work at his parents' house just a few weeks before the murder. This was the real-world connection they had been searching for. The two men didn't just know each other online, they had met in person. Police theorized that during their interactions, Triplett must have figured out that Jason was the same web sleuth he knew from the forums. But what was the motive? Why would a septic tank installer murder his client? The answer lay buried, quite literally. While investigating Triplett, police uncovered something else. A man who had worked for Triplett, Brent Mack, had gone missing a year earlier. His last known contact was with his boss, Daniel Triplett. Suddenly, all the pieces started to click into place. The police developed a chilling theory. Jason Fox, the relentless online detective, hadn't just been investigating a cold case in another state. He had started looking into a case much closer to home, the disappearance of Brent Mack. He had started to connect the dots, started to suspect that his septic guy, Daniel Triplett, the man he knew online as Captain, was involved. Investigators believe that Jason, in his characteristic way, had confronted Triplett. He had gotten too close to the truth, and Daniel Triplett, fearing exposure, decided to silence him permanently. He used his knowledge of Jason's home, gained from working there, to get inside. He staged the scene to look like a robbery gone wrong, setting the fire to destroy evidence. Armed with this powerful theory, police arrested Daniel Triplett. The trial was a media sensation, a story of internet obsession and real-world violence. The prosecution laid out its case, connecting Triplett to Jason's murder through a web of digital and circumstantial evidence. They showed how his cell phone data placed him in the Bartlesville area at the time of the murder and presented evidence of his strange online behavior. And then came the final, gut-wrenching confirmation. While searching Triplett's property, investigators made a grim discovery. Buried underneath a septic tank that Triplett himself had installed was a body. It was his missing employee, Brent Mack. He had been shot. Daniel Triplett wasn't just a killer, he was a serial killer, hiding in plain sight, masquerading as a helpful grandfather and a knowledgeable online forum moderator. He had murdered Brent Mack and buried him on his own property. And when Jason Fox, the brilliant amateur detective, got too close to uncovering that first murder, Triplett killed him too. The man who moderated online discussions about solving murders was a murderer himself. In the end, Daniel Triplett was found guilty of both murders and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The case sent shockwaves through the web sleuth community. It was a terrifying reminder that the monsters they hunted online were real, and sometimes they were lurking in the same chat rooms, pretending to be one of them. Jason Fox's story is a tragedy. He was a man who found his purpose in the digital world, using his unique skills to fight for victims. In a cruel twist of fate, his own murder was solved using the very same blend of digital forensics and old-fashioned detective work that he had championed. He solved murders until his own became the final, tragic puzzle for others to piece together. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as compelling as we did, please like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the cases that defy easy answers. Stay safe out there.